Next, we see Jim is among the crowd trying to escape Han. Fused from all the extraterrestrial fights, Jim wants to know what differentiates the Yoke from the Matrix clone. The Yoke claims that the main distinction is that he'll not harm Jim. He also adds that Han's mind is in direct sync with the Matrix. Meanwhile, Nina finally enters Jim's room with the help of Chris and Ben, but finds no one inside. Just then, Bill and Patrick also arrive at Jim's room to look for him. They examine his room thoroughly but discover nothing suspicious. Then they wait for Jim to arrive outside the building so that they can interrogate him and find out what's going on. Next, Jim is on the way home on the subway when the Yoke notices a drone inside. They immediately get into a fight, and soon Jim destroys the drone. The Yoke then consumes the drone and increases its power. Now Jim's hand can be transformed into a pointed knife-like weapon. Moments later, Han's wife also arrives there in an attempt to kill Jim, but he manages to escape successfully. For a while, Han's wife keeps following him, but Jim comes up with a plan to get away from her and leaves her behind. Meanwhile, Nina threatens Stan, saying she'll spill water on his computer if he does not tell the truth about Jim. At that moment, Nina is shocked to learn about Jim's cancer, and later they both go to the roof of the building. Nina then tells Stan of what she witnessed the night before between him and Jim. She believes they're both gay and deserve each other. When Stan hears this from Nina, he laughs and claims that they're not gay, and unintentionally, Stan reveals Jim's secret to Nina. Next, Jim enters his room unaware of the fact that Han is hiding in his bedroom. Soon, when Han reveals himself, Jim jumps out of the window and injures himself. The Yoke separates from him and goes into hiding. Then Han appears in front of him and stabs a rod through the center of his chest, killing him. Bill and Patrick, who are waiting outside, hear the disturbance and come running. They attempt to capture Han, but to no avail. Jim, who's supposed to be dead, wakes up and pulls the rod out of his chest. He goes out to request help, but no one helps him. When the cops arrive at Jim's murder scene, they discover that he's not there. However, they discover Jim's phone and keep it. On the other hand, Jim is alone on the road, looking for help. Soon his friend Stan finds him, and immediately Jim requests that Stan contact Grace for help. Next, doctors are seen inspecting Jim's body at Grace's place. They're attempting to learn more about the Yoke and how Jim survived the road attack. Grace informs him that the Yoke is still alive and that he may have found a new host. She also informs him that he did not cure his cancer, but rather implanted himself inside cancer cells to prevent them from developing. She also informs him that because the Yoke is no longer in his body, the cancer has returned and is spreading rapidly. In the next scene, Jim attends his class as usual. However, he's not feeling well as he can see cancer symptoms visibly on his face and hands. Jim's worried that he'll die if he doesn't discover the Yoke. Back at Grace's place, she notices some oddities in her lab. The Yoke soon arrives and attempts to attack her, but Grace manages to save herself and capture the Yoke. She then examines the Yoke by placing it in a tube, but he keeps calling for Jim. Grace then interrogates the Yoke about him, his planet, and how he came to Earth. Finally, the Yoke tells her that he's from the planet K001 and that he arrived on Earth because of the black hole's gravitational acceleration. On the other hand, Jim is agitated because he believes he'll die soon. Nina enters moments later and notices Jim and wishes to speak with him, but Jim refuses to speak with her since he believes he's a monster due to his cancer and leaves. However, Nina pursues Jim and expresses her undying love for him. Finally, on a happy note, both Jim and Nina exchange hugs. Next, Jim wakes up next to Nina. He discovers that one of his eyes is deteriorating. Confused, he heads towards Grace's place, where he discovers a film about Dr. Zhang and how he used to search for alien life. After a while, Nina wakes up and begins looking for Jim. She goes to Jim's room, but he's nowhere to be found. Then, Stan informs her that he might be visiting Grace's place. Back at Grace's place, Jim finds the Yoke locked inside a tube and talks with him. The Yoke begs Jim to release him and reconnect him to his body. But Jim is upset, and he doesn't want the Yoke within him this time, because earlier the Yoke abandoned him to die alone. Later, Grace brings Jim up to the roof for some fresh air. She informs him that he'll require the Yoke to survive. She also tells him about her father, Dr. Zhang, and how he was consumed by an alien. She also mentions how she's been looking for her father ever since she was a child. Next, Grace provides Jim with a device that allows him to control the Yoke. He accepts the device and prepares to restore the Yoke inside of him. After some time, Nina and Stan arrive at Grace's place as well. There, Nina sees and speaks with the Yoke for the first time. Now, Jim is prepared to accept the Yoke into his body. Nina then inserts the device to control the Yoke into Jim's body. Moments later, in another turn of events, we see Han's wife and her drone army arrive at Grace's house as well. Han's wife and some drones arrive at Grace's place. They go on a murder spree and kill all the doctors in the lab. Grace then heads to the lab to fight them and holds them off for a few minutes. Eventually, Jim reconnects the yoke to his body. However, as a result of the device that he attached earlier, the yoke's synchronization with his body is slow. Soon after, Han's wife approaches Jim and attempts to kill him, but with the help of Stan and Nina, he kills her with an electric shot. Next, Nina, Stan, Grace, and Jim are all there. We see Jim is completely controlled by the yoke and he quickly releases the device. Grace tries to fight the yoke, but she's no match for the yoke's powers. The yoke even tries to kill Grace, but Nina tries to help her by pushing Jim towards her. When Jim sees Nina, he comes back to his senses and he becomes free of the yoke's control. The yoke then detaches himself from Jim's body and states that he's never seen such trust in anyone. The yoke resolves to put his trust in Jim from now on. Later, the yoke informs them that the Matrix will attack Earth soon and the drones are on their way. Carriers are being bred by the drones for the Matrix. If they don't stop her, she will parasitize the entire Earth, halting all natural evolution processes, and the Earth will become the new Matrix. Next, we see Jim, Nina, Stan, and Grace leaving the building. At that moment, Bill and Patrick also arrive at the scene, and they're shocked to see Jim still alive. They then arrest Jim to investigate him while allowing the others to go free. On their way to the police station, the yoke asks Jim whether he should kill them both, but Jim refuses, saying that they're only doing their job. Suddenly, a drone appears in front of their vehicle. Their car collides with the drone and crashes, causing the cops to pass out. Fortunately, Jim is saved from harm by the yoke, and soon enough, Jim and the drone engage in a fight. He eventually manages to kill the drone, after which he calls Nina and informs her of his location. Once the three friends arrive at Jim's location, the yoke suggests that they must locate the Matrix and eliminate her as soon as possible. As a result, they decide to free the captured drone and follow him to the Matrix. Next, we see all of them inside a car following the drone. The yoke senses the drone is helping them and following him. Soon, Jim gets out of the car to follow him across the crowded area. He pursues the drone to an abandoned building that's locked from the outside. Moments later, he arrives near the drone and discovers him dead. Meanwhile, Bill and Patrick are rescued by other cops on the bridge. Patrick informs Bill that it was Jim who dragged them out of the car and that it was Jim who fought with the drone. Bill then decides to track Jim's mobile phone. Motivated to find out what's going on, they're on their way to find Jim. At last, we see Han also arrive at Jim's location. Once again, the two rivals come face to face. The yoke says that he needs some time to regain his strength, so he urges Jim to run for the time being. Jim then starts running as Han follows him. As Jim is being followed by Han, Bill and Patrick arrive there and hit Han with their car. Realizing Han is the enemy here, Bill and Patrick decide to help Jim. They all arrive at the abandoned place, which is supposed to be the Matrix base camp. There, Jim then decides to tell Bill and Patrick the truth about the yoke. The cops are stunned to learn the truth, but decide to help them in killing the Matrix. After that, Jim decides to enter the abandoned location and try to kill the Matrix once and for all. However, the yoke warns Jim that there may be more drones within, making it impossible for them to even reach the Matrix. The yoke then recommends luring the drones out and killing them one by one. Nina offers to go inside and lure the drones outside, while Bill, Patrick, and Grace are armed and ready to take them down. Soon, their plan comes into play, and they execute it successfully. Meanwhile, Jim is still waiting for Han, the Matrix's original clone, to arrive. Again, Nina returns to the place to lure another drone outside. As Nina is taking a little longer to come out, Jim decides to follow her into the place. While looking for Nina, soon after he meets Han. The two rivals again fight each other for a while. Later, with the help of Yoke's plot, Jim is able to kill Han successfully. He then notices the Matrix attached to the wall. Jim approaches the Matrix, which appears to be sleeping. The Yoke advises Jim to absorb her powers before she awakens. After absorbing its power for a while, the Yoke comes to a halt. Now he's almost as powerful as his mother, because the Yoke also evolved from the Matrix. So Jim sets an explosive in the heart of the Matrix and runs. Finally, the Matrix is destroyed by a huge blast, except for the brain. Next, Jim is on his way out, convinced that the Matrix has died. However, the Matrix's brain enters Han's dead body and wakes him up once again. Soon the Yoke detects the presence of the Matrix and declares that the Matrix has awakened and that he would not be able to fight it easily. The Yoke then reveals that it will take him 3 years to beat the Matrix. He also adds that the Matrix has the potential to infect the entire planet in just 1 year. But moments later, he claims there's a different way to defeat her. For the time being, the Matrix is still very weak. The Yoke claims that he'll bring all of Jim's cancer cells together and transfer them to Han's body to attack the Matrix from within. Ready to execute the plan, Jim lures Han to come outside. Soon after, Nina and Stan lure Han into a trap where they'd put up electric lines to electrocute him. Han is electrocuted, but only for a short time since he manages to escape. Then Jim stabs him in the chest with his weaponized hand. While his hand is inside Han's body, the Yoke begins to collect all the cancer cells and sends them into Han's body. Soon after, the Yoke enters Han's body, leaving Jim's body behind. However, the Yoke tells Jim to run because he's failed to kill the Matrix from within. Soon after, the Matrix regains control of Han and starts beating Jim and his friends. After a while, Jim is about to be killed by the Matrix. Fortunately, Stan arrives just in time and saves him by electrifying Han. Meanwhile, the Yoke is at odds with the Matrix inside Han. Soon, the Yoke inside Han's body climbs the electric poles and sacrifices himself by electrocuting himself, because it's the only way to kill the Matrix now. In the next scene, Jim runs to Nina and tells her that everything is over, as finally everything returns to normal. Jim and Stan are seen discussing how cool it was that they have just saved the world. However, even though so much has happened in the past few days, nothing appears to be different, and everything appears to be familiar, as if it was before all this happened. In the final scene, Jim has arrived to take Nina to the airport, as she's finally heading to the United States for an exchange program. The end.